It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, this is...
You can't stop. You gotta keep going.
Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 449. Tonight I'm joined by Ammo.
Hello.
Ashgar.
That was early enough you could have done it over.
Grace.
The only way out is through.
Kodra.
We can't go over it. We can't go under it. Oh no, we'll have to go through it.
Damn.
Never look back. Never scroll up.
No editing allowed.
I mean, technically, I'll probably remove the silence, but I'll keep it. So, I mean, sometimes you derail, and I just derailed, I face planted.
Yeah,
it was a day.
Words are hard.
Words are hard
very
sometimes. Sorry we didn't record last week. We were down most of a show.
Yup.
So yeah, and then, I wasn't sure how late I would be running tonight, so I really was hoping not to miss 2 weeks in a row.
Which we didn't.
We didn't. Yay! We have topics. We have an abundance of topics. Let's start off with some Honkai Star Rail. Grace, you have been playing. I have not. Tell me about this thing.
So our positions have switched because I really started out a bit skeptical about Honkai Star Rail and am now completely on board. But they have had a recent update that basically added an entire alternate version of their simulated universe game mode. And it's kind of great and also really hard, and I'm here for it.
I've only done the tutorial part of it, but it looks really cool.
There's just a lot going on, and it doesn't have recurring rewards like the regular simulated universe mode, but it has really good rewards for first time completion of everything. And it's just really fun. And it does, if you get all the way through it, then it will unlock a whole new path for the regular version. So that's kind of cool. But
I really need to buckle down and get through this, and I think I have tomorrow is the last day.
Oh no! So tomorrow or the next day is the last day for the Arum Vale event.
Arum Alley.
Okay.
Alley, right. Oh, God.
That would be a whole different mini game.
That would be very different.
Please no.
Event.
I mean, that sounds like a great collab.
Arum Alley, which is an event with a little mini game, and it is really fun and has a cute story, and you should definitely do it, Belle. And that will stay, but you'll lose the one-time rewards.
Mm-hmm.
But no, this is something completely different. This is an entire extra version of Simulated Universe, and this is not going away. This is permanent.
Sweet.
So you can take your time getting to it, but it's just an extra several levels of complexity to Simulated Universe. So instead of just sort of going through and getting a forking path of, I choose either combat or occurrence, you actually get to see a map of different options to move through in a little hex grid. And depending on which path you choose, it can alter what kinds of tiles are available to move through. So that's just kind of cool by itself. It's also got essentially a countdown timer. So every time you move through a tile, the counter counts down, and if it hits 0, then it starts essentially buffing your enemies for every tile you move through. So it's trying to prevent you from moving through all the tiles and getting all the buffs. And of course, there are things that you can do about that. So it's just like there's just a lot more to think about as you play, which is really fun. There's new buffs, new cards, new events. There's a whole additional, not quite skill tree, but serves the same purpose of gradually buffing you over time as you complete levels. And the last boss is really hard. I have not completed this game mode on all of the difficulties yet. It will probably be a while before I do, and that's okay. Yeah, getting through and having that countdown timer go negative is a problem. But it's just been fun to go through, and there's a lot of new events. So reading all the flavor text and stuff there is kind of fun. And yeah, I'm just really enjoying it. I'm also really glad that I happened to randomly pull Welds, because I didn't want to pull for the current banner imaginary DPS character. And you really need imaginary or quantum damage to succeed. So yeah, I was I was leveling him like crazy to make sure I had at least one character that was capable of doing something against the swarm enemies. But it's kind of fun to have battles where instead of everything being fixed the whole time, you have enemies that essentially they have propagation. They will either divide themselves and have spawned enemies, or just every few rounds a new enemy will spawn in of these bugs, and it's sort of a war of attrition, trying to knock them all down before they murder you.
I'm having a hard time imagining this because, like, again, I haven't played Honkai Star Rail. This is a, like, JRPG style, like, select attacks from menu combat thing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Does it become a little bit more tactical with this sort of grid orientation? Or are, like, enemies... Is it like Mario RPG where the enemies are visible on the screen and you have to, like, run into them to start a fight?
You do have to run into enemies, or you have to attack enemies to start a fight, but the grid is not so much like you walking around in real time and seeing individual enemies. It's essentially a series of rooms that you are moving through, and those rooms may contain an enemy, they may contain a vendor, they might contain buffs. So that's sort of what's going on with the hex grid.
Sort of like an Etrian Odyssey. I'm envisioning it, at least.
I haven't played that one, so I couldn't say.
Have you played Wizardry?
Nope.
Okay. You are dungeon delving around, like, and you're mapping out a floor, and each square you move into might have a random encounter.
I mean, it sounds similar, yeah. But anyway, it's super fun. And I appreciate having something that doesn't cost any, daily currency to actually play. So you can hop in there and run as much of this as you want in a given day. It doesn't have any recurring rewards either, but it'll be a long time before I'm done getting all the way through everything that's there.
That sounds very cool. I definitely need to play some more of it.
I kind of get frustrated with my brain sometimes because, like, there's part of me that wants to be playing Honkai Star Rail, but also, like, I go through these phases of I'm obsessed, I have no interest. And that's kind of what happened to me with Honkai Star Rail was like, I think once I pulled Kafka, it was like, oh, okay, I'm done.
I really need to, and you really need to give it give it another go, because I managed to screw up my start twice. Once I didn't realize that I hadn't finished the tutorial, and so when I took a break and came back, it made me restart the tutorial.
Yeah, that happened to me the very first time too.
And then the second time, I got to about the same point and then had to stop. So I still have to restart the tutorial. And it's hard to like.
It feels real bad when you log in thinking, oh, I'll just pick up where I left off. And then like, oh no, I'm at the beginning of the game again.
Yeah. And I know the moment I get past it, I'll be like, oh, this is cool. But
I gotta say though, like, and I think Grace will probably agree with this, like, it's really not until you're pretty deep into the second planet that the game truly hooks you.
Yeah, it does take a little bit. It's not quite halfway into the second planet, I would say, but just a little ways into the second planet. But then it does get quite good. And I do think that the combat was fun even before you got to that point. But the story actually starts getting good there.
It was a mechanically good game, but then it becomes a story good game.
And I really do love that all of the events that have actual interesting gameplay content are just permanently sort of archived in the game so that you can still go back and play through the museum event. And, you know, there's like a fighting event and like a fight club event and the
dig mining thing that was kind of cool.
Right. Yeah. Like you can still go, you know, if you're starting now, you can still play all of those things and still get some rewards for them. You just will get more rewards if you do an event while it's current. And I think that's fair.
It is also coming to PS5 like October 11th or something. So it's nice for people who will be just starting it there. We'll be able to go back and check out some of the stuff too.
I will warn you, though, about that is if it works anything like Genshin did, make sure you link your account if you had an account on another platform.
Yeah.
Because once you've downloaded and logged into the game without doing that, there's no going back. Like I have a separate PS5 or PS account and a PC mobile account because there's no way I can link the two now.
Yeah, that was kind of tricky. I was able to successfully do mine, but if you weren't like doing it carefully step by step, then yeah.
Yeah, just follow a guide.
Yeah.
Like if you already had an account from another thing, before you get involved on the Sony platform, just follow the guide to link your account and then you'll be fine. And you'll be able to play the same characters on, you know, Sony as mobile as PC.
Oh.
Okay, Grace, what idle game have you been playing?
Chillquarium.
Okay, what is Chillquarium?
I mean, it's kind of what it says on the tin. It's a Chillquarium. Sometimes I just go through phases where I just want to mess with a little pokey idle game. The idle games are so stupid, and when I play them, I usually hit a point where I'm like, is this even a game? What am I doing? But for a while, it's just a chill way to distract yourself for a little while. So Chillquarium just recently came out on Steam. It's a couple bucks, and it is the kind of idle game that I usually go for, which is here, have some fish tanks, put some fish in them, and then feed them and they'll grow. And I'm raising giant squid and whale sharks in my aquarium somehow, and I'm here for it.
Nice.
Okay, it sounds compelling because back in the day, I used to have an aquarium app on like Windows 95, Windows 98 era, where like you would just have a virtual aquarium and like random fish would show up. I love that thing.
I mean, I think it's really great. Like, the fish are really cute. They're, like, cute and well drawn, and are actual fish with some interesting color variations and things for randomness. But, like, you can have freshwater or saltwater tanks with different amounts of fish in them, and design little backgrounds and different colored sand, and it's just incredibly chill. Like I said, I know at some point I'll hit the stage where I look at it and go, this is not a game, this is a time sink. But for now, sometimes it's nice to just have a little aquarium full of random fish swimming around on my desktop.
That's super cool. Also, that would have to be a really big aquarium.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was about to say, I know the Atlanta aquarium has like 6 whale sharks in it, but it's like the size of a football field.
Yeah, I don't know how 100 whale sharks fit in this aquarium, but you know, I'll go with it because they're real cute.
Okay, Kodra, hit us with the Magic the Gathering PoE Hearthstone D4 conversation.
Well, so this was like less a conversation. I kind of started this because I was chatting with you and Ash about this, but there was a Twitter post about how, like, I think it was Jerry from Penny Arcade was like, how is it that Blizzard has kind of like completely lost to Path of Exile and it doesn't even seem close? And somebody made the comment of, well, Diablo 4 is Hearthstone and Path of Exile is Magic the Gathering. And when I saw that, that really clicked for me for a number of reasons. Big one is that it's probably... PoE is not nearly as accessible. Magic the Gathering is definitely inaccessible in a bunch of ways. That feels true for PoE, Path of Exile, to me. And so my comment after I posted this in our Path of Exile Slack channel was, all right, so when somebody is like, I want to start drafting Magic the Gathering, like, how do I do this? It's like, okay, step 1, you need to know how to play Magic the Gathering, but that's sort of like, I know how to quote-unquote just baseline play a Path of Exile game. Like, you move around, you press skills, enemies blow up, items fall on the ground. That is, like, not enough to play Path of Exile. And that's knowing how to play Magic the Gathering is also not necessarily enough to play a draft. You want to at least have some semblance of what you're doing as you're selecting the cards. So I usually recommend you want to draft 2 colors, you want to draft 23 spells, you fill the rest of your deck with 17 lands, and then you draft in what we traditionally call bread order. Bombs, removal, evasion, aggro, duds. And I could go... All of those are loaded terms of jargon that I would need to explain, and I usually do. Like, bombs are a card that, if it resolves and doesn't immediately get killed, will probably take over a game and win it for you. Removal is a card that will take care of your opponent's bombs, like probably a kill spell or something like that. Evasion is any creature that is able to attack and has difficulty being blocked. And aggro is usually low to the ground attacking creatures. And you want to avoid basically anything else. But my question was, what is that, like, 5-minute, here's how you get started with drafting Magic the Gathering for Path of Exile?
Yeah, and like, I kind of freeformed a list. So you need at least 2 forms of defense. Like, 2 different defensive layers, because no one defensive layer really is strong enough to keep up against all the damage you're going to take. you have to cap your resists. Now,
So I will stop you. This is one of the things that I thought was interesting. I need 2 forms of defensive layer, but resists don't count as a defensive layer?
They are the price of admission. They are not a defensive layer in themselves.
So which probably
But they can
means
be.
They can be
That's
if
true.
you're
They
can
if you're
be.
Yes.
overcapping your resists and you're shifting things as the damage type that you have like 90% resist, then yeah, they can be a defensive layer themselves. But 75 to all resists is just the price of admission.
Yeah,
That is the beginning of the game.
Yeah, by default, anything that does elemental damage is going to do just so much more damage than other things. The assumption is you have capped resists. Chaos is not a resist that has to be capped. It's harder to cap. It's not a bad idea to try to cap it.
It
but
depends on what content you're doing. If you're
That's true.
just mapping, for the most part, chaos rarely matters.
It gets more important as you go along, yes. And for certain types of content, like in the Adziri Temple, you see more chaos damage.
Yeah. Like if you try and do Adziri or Uber Adziri without chaos damage, you're just going to melt.
I mean, even
Without
then,
chaos resist.
Without chaos resist, yeah.
even then, you don't necessarily need it capped. Mostly, you just need to make sure it's not negative.
Right.
It definitely,
Because by default, it is.
it definitely validates Kodra's theory that like instantly deep into jargon.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then like defensive layers.
I had a different list when asked this question, but
Okay.
there was a lot of overlap.
Like defensive layers are like evasion or armor or health pool, like just massive health pool, or recovery or leech or
Lots of
recoup
regen, yeah.
or energy shield with a way of making energy shield recover quickly. Like there's
Block.
a bunch of different block. Yeah. Life gain on block.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I guess my point is, as I listen to this, like, it feels like I need to learn a lot more about any of these. And granted, like, card evaluation is hard too. Like, just saying draft bombs is really hard when you don't necessarily know what a bomb is and you don't know if it'll take over that format. But like, this is the challenge I have, is like, hearing a lot of these, I'm like, oh yeah, energy shield. I can have what is a lot of energy shield? When does it go from being an incidental mount to enough to form a layer?
Like,
The answer is when it passes the amount of health you have.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it also, like, it greatly depends how much energy shield you need if you also have life.
Yep.
You know,
But
so
also,
like,
also you can do things that cause your energy shield to regen faster and regen more quickly. Because normally, energy shield, when you take damage, your energy shield goes on cooldown for a bit.
yeah.
There are ways to shorten that.
Well, and just because you have energy shield doesn't mean that your character is going to use it as energy shield.
To back up
Also-
a little bit, though.
Also, you have to remember that chaos damage ignores your energy shield.
To back up a little bit, there basically is a short list of things a Path of Exile character needs to be successful. Many of them will need further explanation.
Right. Like, a way to handle mana, a way to deal damage.
A way to get out of the center of a pack of monsters.
I feel like that one at least is somewhat explained. Like, take a dash skill. Like, I can understand.
You specifically need ones that can take you through the monsters, though. Shield dash? No, that's not enough. Shield dash is great for speed, but if you get surrounded by monsters, it's not getting you out of them.
This is fascinating. The build I've got exclusively relies on shield dash, so maybe it's a bad build.
I think it has Flame Dash also in it.
Yeah, you
for a
probably
specific
want
purpose.
either Flame Dash or Frostblink, one of those, not even leveled up. Its entire purpose is if you're surrounded by stuff, pop over somewhere else.
Yep. And like a lot of my characters run both shield charge and another movement skill just because I like having two, which seems weird that I'm devoting at least 2 sockets just to movement skills, but
I feel like that's pretty normal.
There's reasons for that.
I mean, another option for that is a way to get phasing.
Yeah.
Like if you have phasing, you can just walk through enemies.
Well, like in Delve, I always swap one of my flasks for a phasing flask because one of the things about Delve is so mobs have a hitbox and have hit collision, and they will swarm you in Delve because one of the things about Delve is they just throw so many mobs at you and you can get trapped where you can't move out. So if you have a phasing flask, you can just pop your phasing flask and walk through them.
Yeah.
Or
But
if
I
you
think
play- What?
right there you've hit on an assumption that a new player would need to know, which is what kind of content are you building this character
Yes.
for?
That is a
Also
thing.
important.
Like, there are mapping characters, there are bossing characters, there are delving characters, there are blight characters, there are sanctum characters.
And see, like, that is very interesting to me because that's not really apparent when you're playing this game.
And it does have analogs to Magic in that, is this a commander bomb? Is this a...
Sure.
Or even to
But-
an extent, like, is this a mid-range deck? Is this an aggro deck?
Yep.
Yes, and that's reasonable. What I would say is, when I'm dealing with standard, though, I am not a good enough player, and so what I do is, if I wanted to play standard, I'd probably just net deck, and that's another thing that this analogy really clicked into my head is I should probably just be, relying on other people to tell me what deck to use.
You absolutely should net deck as a starting PoE character
I mean-
player. Yes.
And this also has an equivalent in Magic that if you want to build a specific deck, you're probably just better off buying the pieces for it than trying to pull them out of packs. And that's why I got involved in the trade league.
I mean, knowing how the crafting system in Path of Exile works is its own entire podcast-long conversation we could have.
It's absurd.
I mean, there are people that do nothing but craft items in this game.
It's true, because if you know what you're doing, you can craft for profit.
It is frankly kind of ridiculous to me, though, how bad the community is at, like, new player onboarding,
Oh,
given all of this.
Yes.
Like this is a problem, and this is part of what, like, I've tried to address, at least at small level, when I do blog posts, is and the problem is, like, I know I am already past the threshold of how to fully understand somebody just starting the game, and I'm only 5 leagues in. Like, you look at somebody like Zizarin that does guide content, and he honestly is probably one of the more new player friendly people.
I mean, there is no new player guide.
He's
more
dozens
better
of
than the
leagues
Righteous
in.
Fire guide.
Yeah.
Pox appears to have figured out how to write a guide that is actually good for new players and can be followed, and he plays the red deck every time.
Yeah, I did joke to Ash that Pox is a red deck wins specialist, and he is always going to play red deck wins, and red deck wins is going to have different, like, cards you put into it based on what standard metagame you're playing, but red deck will always win.
Yeah, and to be fair, like, Righteous Fire is great because it's predictable.
Yeah.
Like I rolled my second character of the league is I rolled a Righteous Fire Juggernaut again because it is reliable. It lets me go get whatever I want.
And the guide is actually written to be a new player friendly guide, like including what you should look for when you're leveling,
And
what quests you should do,
and explanations of why.
Yes.
Like, he's got his own loot filter that's just for the items that you need for that build.
Like,
and
that's-
also, like, how to craft everything you would need.
Like, that's the thing that always infuriates me about the majority of these guides is there's all this, like, you need this thing and this thing and that thing and the other thing, and absolutely no information as to why.
Well, like, they'll say,
Why do
oh,
I
you
do
need
those
an Elder
things?
Influenced Helm.
Also,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, how do I get
What
that?
does that mean?
What does that mean?
I feel like another thing that would be useful is, like, again, as somebody who does understand Magic at a pretty deep level, is like there are specific templates that Magic uses, the, like, Wizards of the Coast uses when writing cards to help you understand, like, if it's written this way, this is what it means. That definitely also exists in Path of Exile, and I definitely wish there was a better way of, like, understanding how all of those interactions worked.
Yeah, I think the problem is there's just so much content, and it's the same issue that Magic has. There is so much content.
Path of Exile needs a commander. It needs commander format so badly.
Well, I kind of think that's what PoE 2 is going to be. Is a more understandable version of Path of Exile.
Wouldn't surprise me.
I need to stress, Commander is not what I would call more understandable, but it's so much lower stakes.
So the funny thing is like when you brought up the Magic the Gathering reference point, like this is not without reason. Chris Wilson is a massive Magic the Gathering fan. He continues to claim that he has a copy of every single Magic card that has ever been printed. Like, a lot of the design decisions behind Path of Exile were net decked from Magic the Gathering.
I mean, that definitely tracks. I would love to see their comprehensive rules document.
I'm not sure I want to see that document.
The problem that I've had is, like, I've had to learn a lot of these league mechanics just by going all in on them for an entire league. Like, I'm going to focus on this one thing, and I'm going to learn this one league mechanic. Like, this time around, I learned Blight and Legion. I understand those very well now. Last league, I learned Betrayal. I understand Betrayal. Betrayal is nonsense, but it is way easier than I thought it was.
I feel like I still barely understand Betrayal, but I do now understand Blight a lot better than I did previously. And Legion, I understand a lot better than I did previously.
The other thing that I think is probably worth... The thing that I have a hard time with, and maybe, like, if it was formatted better, I'd be really interested in, like, how people approach build crafting.
I mean, because I like to do things the hard way, like, I have not net decked. Like, after my first time through, I have not net decked a build. Other than occasionally, if I have a build that I'm putting together, I'll, like, look up to see if anybody's doing the same thing. But I've built builds from nothing, and they've been successful. Like, are you going to be like, I don't know, I was going to make up a term like quad mapping in under a minute or something equally nonsense. You know, pick something that you would see in a YouTube video. Like, no, I'm not doing that. But for me to enjoy the game,
uber boss viable.
I mean, it's like I'm not actually necessarily. I can infer what boss viable means, but I couldn't tell you which bosses or when I would hit them. But like, can I play it to my satisfaction through a league? Yes.
Sorry, uber boss viable is what people usually say in that slot. Can you kill the uber bosses? The ones that I do not intend to actually fight at any point this league at all, ever. Because there's no reason for me to want to do this.
I took down Sirius today for the very first time, and that was interesting. But, like, I don't know that I'll ever do the actual uber variants of things.
There's not a lot of reason to.
Maven. Like, I still can't kill Maven. It takes so much effort to gather up the crap to be able to try that, like, in order for me to learn the Maven fight, I need to do repetition, and I just, like, I will go a week gathering up the resources to get a Maven attempt, and it's just too much time between attempts.
But yeah, to your point, Tam, like, a build does not have to do everything in order for it to be useful. And it is possible to just brew up a build that works once you know enough about the game's interactions.
I think a lot of times it starts with, I want to play with this ability. What has good synergy with that ability? And unfortunately, you kind of have to, like, go out to the Wikipedia and look up stuff.
Somewhat, but, like, the text as written on Skill Gems is frighteningly exact. Like, for instance, Divine Ire is a lightning-channeled spell. Lightning-channeled physical spell.
So it's not an attack,
right?
But it does physical damage and lightning damage?
Correct.
And you have to channel it while you're casting it, so you stand still?
Yep.
Yeah, that was definitely another thing, is, like, everything's very... all of the affixes, the prefixes, and suffixes of items are also very specific, but it's easy to, like, at a glance look at something, especially when you're new, and not understand what it means.
Well,
Like, anything that says adds an amount of elemental damage.
And did you know adds and increases are two different things? And it's
Very
important that
I've been told.
There are at least 4 different phrases I could think of for how things make you do more damage.
yeah, more is usually the best.
There is more, which is almost always a percent, which is multiplicative always. It's almost the best thing you can have. There is increased, which is additive with other increases. There is flat numbers, which is usually applied directly to the skill based on its own added damage effectiveness. And then there is the gain as extra wording, which indicates damage conversion and has its own bucket of nonsense behind it.
Yeah, but it's also worth noting, like, some of these add to spells, but some of these add to, like, the weapon damage itself, and so it only applies to attacks.
Mm-hmm. And then also you got
on armor pieces, it will tell you either applies to attacks or applies to spells, but weapons generally don't tell you, and PS it applies to attacks unless it says spell specifically. That actually bothers me.
That one got me a lot when I was starting. Because I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely what I want. And I was like, this doesn't seem to be doing anything. And it wasn't.
Yeah. That's like the hardest thing at the beginning, I think, is that a spell and a hit or a spell and an attack are two different things.
That's a different thing. Spells do hit.
Right, yeah. And that one still continues to screw me up, and Ash has to straighten me out. Whether or not a spell actually is hitting.
Most spells hit, except for all the ones that only do damage over time.
Yeah, like Righteous Fire doesn't hit.
Flame Trap does, Searing Bond doesn't, Scorching Ray doesn't.
But like Flame Trap, its hit is just the first explosion. The real damage that you're dealing over time isn't a hit.
It is in fact turtles all the way down.
It is. Like every time I think I learned something, I open the box and there's another thing to learn inside of it. And I think to some extent that's what's kept me obsessed with this stupid thing. Is at some point I went to get to the bottom of it, and then they keep adding more things on top.
And I do understand, like, again, like, I am now playing this game, is what I will say. These conversations, while it's like, man, this makes it seem very hard and difficult, and I don't disagree, it also got me to be like, yeah, actually, I think I'll get back into this, because that is at least something compelling, and maybe I can start to learn if I view it through that prism. And also, I found a decent guide on max roll. Maybe I will try and become a miner specialist.
Mine builds are real strong.
I really like mines. Like,
they're a very specific play style, and it is an acquired taste, but like miners seem to really like them and will always gravitate towards that. 'Cause, like, I feel like there's families of builds.
I can tell you why mines are not in the meta, generally speaking. I mean, Hexblast came back in a big way.
They're kind of bad mappers.
Well, there are two things there. I mean, Seismic Trap was allegedly a bad mapper, but no, it wasn't. Really, it's not.
What do you mean? Okay, what do you mean by mapper?
Runs maps quickly and with like just sort of tearing through enemies to get to the end of the map with some amount of loot along the way. Unlike, say, Last Epoch, you do need to do more than just rush to the end of the map because you need more maps, so you need to kill things.
But like,
and so when builds people describe as mapping builds generally specialize in wiping out screens of enemies and moving quickly.
Yeah, like Lightning Arrow or Tornado Shot will just kind of delete entire screens at once, and stuff will fall to the ground.
But back to what I was saying, part of the reason mines are sort of out of the meta is because reservation skills, auras, are extremely strong. And because mines force you to reserve some amount of mana, even if you are, not actually spending that mana with Eldritch Battery or whatever, they somewhat decrease the amount of reservation skills you can run. I think having seen how ridiculous Pyroclast is and how ridiculous Hexblast mines are, I don't think this is actually enough to keep them out of the meta. Like, I think people just sort of wrote them off. I think they're better than the meta thinks they are.
So on Pyroclast, are you letting the skitterbots detonate them, or are you manually detonating them?
Oh, no. So when skitterbots detonate a mine, it blows up one mine, and that's kind of it. And it doesn't blow it up specifically. It's still there. But Pyroclast needs a detonation sequence. Because for every 3 prior mines in the detonation sequence, it shoots an extra projectile. And Pyroclast is a skill that can shotgun. So you sort of cause a fountain of fire directly where the boss is standing, and anything standing on that spot is dead.
Yeah,
it's really quite ridiculous. You should give it a shot.
I think the point of why mine builds are not more widely played is that most delayed gratification builds in Path of Exile are not widely played.
That's fair, except for EA Champion, which is definitely a delayed gratification build.
Yeah, it's just so tanky.
I don't know.
So good.
You can basically just detonate mines immediately, and especially if you're just clearing small stuff, it blows them up.
Yeah, exactly. Like they
fall over. They're dead.
Yeah, you only need to worry about the whole detonation sequence thing for actual bosses. Because even like rares, you just throw like 2 extra mines and they're still kind of gone.
Yeah, I need to try an actual miner because, like, honestly, I dig Fire Trap. Like, I enjoy that. There's a lot of people who don't like Fire Trap.
I am people.
So one of the reasons I really like mines is I think it works really well with controllers too. Because I basically throw out a mine and hit the detonator at the same time. And I just smash that and things fall over.
I know for one of the things I saw a YouTuber recommend was just putting detonate mines on your walk button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you're in, for just running around the map, it's not like you need to worry about a detonation sequence of any kind. So just blow up all your mines as you go. It's great. I prefer a little more control than that, but I can't say it doesn't work.
So the thing that I have found out is super strong this week is Guardian for minion builds.
Surprise!
I kind of think that both Guardian and Chieftain are better than anyone expected them to be. Like, Chieftain has
Chieftain's
some
a little
issues.
one note.
Yeah. If you don't want to blow up entire screens.
Yes, but look, I do in fact want to do that thing.
Yeah. But
I didn't say it was a bad node. It's just a little one node.
Guardian is so strong for a minion build. Like, I was not expecting that after having played several necromancers as minion builds.
Look, but Gazzy doesn't like it, so therefore it must be bad.
Clearly. I guess, yeah. But it's so tanky. Like, it's not quite RF levels of tanky, but it's super tanky. I mean, I've done, Shaper Guardians, Elder Guardians, really, 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 bad altar modifications to my maps and just zip straight through them. It has kind of become my mapping character. And it's like a combination of the SSRS that I'm used to playing and also a Righteous Fire Juggernaut. Because
you get to carry a Righteous Fire Juggernaut in your back pocket.
Exactly. I have a minion that is my Righteous Fire Juggernaut. And I can bail into a pack and then convocate him into that pack too. And it's just like diving into a pack with an RF jug. It's silly. It is the most silly thing in the world. And it doesn't really require any specific uniques to make it work. Like, it is not necessarily dependent upon a gimmick. I mean, I have some nice gear on it, but I could probably play it just in generic rares. But what didn't work is my attempt to give a redemption arc to Stormbrand.
Well,
like, it's fine. I can technically clear red maps on it, but it is way squishier than I want it to be.
I mean, it's an Inquisitor you've given no defenses to, right?
Yeah, mostly. Like, it's got some defensive layers, but not a ton. It's kind of glass cannon-y. I mean, it's a low life build.
Oh.
So, I have reserved half of my health and most of my mana pool. I don't know. I think I may tool with it at some point and see if I can make it feel a bit better. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I thought I would have the same redemption arc that I did for my EA champion character that I wasn't 100% sure of in Sentinel League, and then realized, I just didn't actually do anything with its resists. But so far that has not been the case with Stormbrand. And like, it is significantly worse than my Wintertide Occultist that I built last league.
Stormbrand does not like the brand jump node nearly as much.
Yeah.
Like Wintertide gets some special benefits from that node that are, quite frankly, ridiculous.
It also really wants a lot of crit. Just heaps of crit.
I mean, a lot of crit, a lot of cast speed.
I mean, I think that's the problem with Lightning in general, is you kind of want a lot of crit because Lightning has an extremely wide range between the low end of damage it could do and the upper bound of damage that it can do.
Does crit always mean it does the most?
It does not.
It skews it towards the top.
Well, no, crit is just a multiplier. Really, there are a bunch of different things you can do. I think there used to be a mastery that let you have non-crit lightning damage be lucky, that is to say roll twice.
Yeah.
But that mastery's gone. If you want that effect, you can get it on a cluster jewel. Otherwise, your best bets are just to keep hitting. Hit more often.
Right.
Keep rolling for them good rolls.
Yep.
So other thing this week, we have been experiencing the speed run of Unity to irrelevance.
It's really impressive. Not in a good way.
No, not in a good way at all. It's been a real frustrating thing to watch.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Like I just don't understand how any sane person could come up with that and think that it was at all good and that people would just be okay with it.
I mean, if you think you have enough lock-in.
I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. My take is Unity knows it doesn't have that much lock-in. I think that my like super bleak take is Unity would like to focus their business on a smaller, less diverse audience that they think makes them more money and gets them more hooked into their platform and is willing to burn basically whoever their mid-size groups are just to...
Yeah, probably so.
I mean, it's very sad. I know a lot of people are rapidly dealing with this frustration of like, there's so much uncertainty.
There's also the minor issues that it's probably not legal to do what they're saying they want to do.
Yes.
In places that aren't the US.
Yeah.
There's a challenge of a lot of companies doing things that are good for business but probably not legal, and basically saying we don't think we'll get caught.
Yeah.
Or we don't think the courts will hold us accountable. Like this, in a lot of ways, does remind me of Wizards. Just
yes.
Completely mucking with the OGL.
Yes, it sort of reads exactly like that.
It is very similar, yeah. Like up to and including the apparent like trying to make this apply retroactively to all existing stuff using Unity.
Yeah.
Like, ugh.
And the removing of what used to be the license from GitHub.
Yes.
Yep.
Like so the tweet or whatever from Cult of the Lamb saying that they're going to remove Cult of the Lamb I'm hoping that was a joke.
It was a joke.
Okay, good. But like I can absolutely see existing games just ceasing to exist because it's not only not profitable to keep them available, it is actively negative profit.
Right.
This is going to do great things for games archivism.
Yeah.
Yep. Let me get my archiving parrot and my archiving eye patch.
I mean, apparently that's what Rockstar's been using.
Yeah, that has been some interesting stuff using the Razer 1911 releases of games as the official releases of games.
They went up and straight up took a pirated release and released it on Steam.
Yep. And they've done it more than once.
I didn't realize until they got caught the most recent time, but yeah, people said they checked and like,
Yep.
it's not the first time.
Yep.
That's
Because
funny.
if you go looking in the bowels of the files, there is a scene info file with
wonderful.
a Razor 1911 tag on it.
Listen, they didn't have those source files around anymore.
No.
Why would they bother keeping those?
Yar, archivist.
Yep.
Yarchivist.
It's just like I do kind of wonder how long it's been going to be before someone reverse engineers the runtime for Unity and releases an open source version that's functional but not exactly the same.
I mean, I thought there was something
The
that
version
would
of
allow
Unity
for...
that doesn't phone home.
I thought there was something that allows for ingestion of Unity files into Godot.
There's
There
projects
is.
for that. Yeah. Like Godot is going to get a lot of traction, especially amongst like small indies, but also I do not think that community is ready for this light to be shined on them.
Oh man, did I miss my waiting for Godot opening?
Yes, you missed your waiting for Godot.
I mean, I would say arguably Godot isn't about the place now as Unity was when it first hit the scene in a notable way.
Well, like, so Godot realizes that they had to become more friendly to Unity developers. So, like, there's now a version of Godot that has mono built in, so you can use C# instead of their proprietary scripting language. So, like, that's a step forward. But yeah, I mean, it's the biggest problem that I've seen with Godot is you do not have a way to deploy to consoles.
So about that, Cassette Beast was on Godot.
Really?
Yeah.
So did they write their own?
I do not know.
Yeah.
But they came out in consoles in May of this year.
So like I've been screwing around with Godot, and there is no way to export to a console package by default. Like you have Android and you have Linux and I think you've got Mac and Windows and you've got a couple variants of Windows, but by default it's not there. But maybe there's one in the community where somebody's figured it out.
Apparently their 4.0 release added console support.
Okay.
I don't know when that was.
4.0 is earlier this year.
Okay. So yeah, they've been cruising along in the background.
I mean, this is
waiting for this moment, apparently.
This is basically a free marketing win for everyone else. I mean, like, to be fair, the number of devs that I have seen saying, well, I guess I'm going to delay my project and just release later and port it to something else.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot. So I guess we won't be getting Silksong this year.
We already weren't getting Silksong this year.
We might not be getting Silksong this decade.
Silksong or Star Citizen first?
I don't know anymore.
Ooh, hey.
We might get Earthblade first. I might lose that bet.
I was about to say, are you ready to admit that we might get Earthblade first?
Maybe I'll get the final Pat Rothfuss book before Silksong comes out.
I don't believe that's going to happen this century.
I would like to please live in a world where Cory Doctorow isn't right every single time.
I think Cory Doctorow would like to live in a world where Cory Doctorow is not right every single time.
I think so.
In shitification.
Yeah.
That definitely does incidentally feel like what this is. It's just like,
oh, absolutely.
Hey, we have this thing. We can make everything worse and use making everything worse to make a small amount of money. We're going to make a small amount of money.
Yep.
Or probably lose a bunch of money, actually. I don't know.
It's fine. Like, it's not our money.
I do think they're under the impression, which I guess we're going to find out, that they had enough lock-in to just force this on everyone without question. Never mind any questions about why they're doing it. I mean, about how they were doing it. No, the why seems to be we acquired an analytics company that got classified as spyware earlier and merged with them. And now we want to force that on everybody as well.
I tell you the thing that worries me the most. I love Parsec. Parsec got bought by Unity.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Darn shame.
So what I need is someone to come up with like an alternative to Parsec, because like it kind of does a thing that nobody else really does very well. Like I feel like this is not going to play out like they thought it was going to play out.
I mean, we've already seen that.
It's relatively rare that I see quite so many game devs mad all about the same thing in exactly the same ways.
It is impressive, yeah. They managed to get all the cats to herd in one direction.
Not really the way you want to do that.
No.
Tam, dare I ask what the heck this topic is?
You gotta say the whole name. You gotta say the entire full name.
Yeah,
Like
you
a
want
Tribe
those
Called Quest.
games, right? So here you go. Let's see you clear them.
If you don't have
properly,
a great ad blocker, you probably see
Oh yeah, the person who pulls the pin and ends up igniting the person underneath or whatever games.
Yeah, like games that you can a bunch of games that you can immediately understand and being played by like in the most incompetent possible way, exhorting you to click them.
Mm-hmm.
And like the actual game that they're linked to, if it doesn't just put malware on your computer immediately,
looks
it has
nothing
nothing to
like
do
it.
with the actual game that you're looking at.
Yeah. If they've had the ad long enough, maybe they've added a level that looks like that ad somewhere in the early part of the game, and then never again.
Yeah. So, published by Bandai Namco, I think.
I think so.
It's a selection of mini games that are those ads.
That's kind of amazing.
And exactly, like it's kind of amazing. And like some of these games do exist in other forms elsewhere, but also it's just like it's existentially satisfying to finally get like a pull the pin puzzle game, and like they're actually not bad. They're actually like interesting little puzzle games.
Mm-hmm.
They're
I mean that's part of what makes those ads at least a little compelling is that like it looks like it could be an interesting sort of puzzle game.
Yeah, and they are, and like there's a handful of them. You've got put all of the colors of liquid into the right tubes because you're just an unbelievable drink layering master.
that one always cracks me up. Like that doesn't work.
That's not how this works at all. But whatever. Here you go.
But like, get cars out of the parking lot is a classic. I've never seen one of them is something to do with stacking money to make your way over obstacles, which I don't think I'd ever seen an ad for.
Mm-mm.
I mean, it's got the pull the pin game. They'll have like 50 levels or something. I'm hoping they add some. I'm hoping that they have that they end up with an expansion pack where you can get some of the new, because like ads have stopped using these ones, but they have new ones now, and I want those ones now.
Yeah.
But the fact that this exists makes me laugh a lot, and it's definitely tongue in cheek, and yet there's still like I played it for like an hour last night, just because it was sort of my mental equivalent of just playing an idle game. Like, I don't know, most of these aren't that hard, but they're at least interesting. And like I started to get to some that I had to do a couple of times. It was like, oh, okay, this is how this mechanic works.
So what is the name of this pack?
Yeah, you want those games, right? So here you go. Now let's see you clear them.
That's actually the name of the game.
That is actually the name of the game. It is laid out exactly in the same kind of typeface, etc., as every manga you've ever seen that has just way, way too many words in the title.
Yes.
That's like the current trend.
Okay, I just thought this was you making commentary.
That's the title.
No, that's the actual legit title of the game in all caps.
It's amazing.
A typeface that you absolutely need for your blog, Bell.
Okay.
But no, it's vaguely charming and satisfies a stupid craving that I've had for like years now.
This is very funny to me.
Having checked, the publisher is D3 Publisher, maker of the what is it, Earth Defense Force series.
Okay, yeah. So, maker of already ridiculous games.
It's fair. I
And-
mean, I got a
The developer is the people behind the Planoa and Katamari revamps.
My statement stands.
I had been somewhat surprised that there wasn't a game dev that was like, you know what, we could actually make these.
So there is a learning Unreal Engine channel that I've watched some of, and like the guy decided to make the level 1 thug turns into like the super powered like crime lord thing that you see in the ads from time to time.
Uh-huh.
He made that game in Unreal Engine.
But yeah, it was. I've been staring at it for a couple of weeks now, and finally I was like, you know what, I will drop a few bucks to look at this, and honestly, I don't regret it.
Okay, so this next topic, I don't have an answer for, but I'm throwing it out there for a discussion. There's been a lot of gnashing of teeth about a Korean Diablo 4 event that happened this week, where it was a live stream event where, you know, it was in one of the arenas over there, and it was like a bunch of people playing Diablo 4, and nobody showed up for it. And this started a discussion about how the Twitch viewership numbers are essentially non-existent right now for Diablo 4. You know, like around 900 viewers total. And I don't know that Twitch viewership numbers mean anything once a game's been out for a while.
It means something if you're trying to monetize it.
I mean, that's kind of number one there. Like, it is an indication that there might be some interest in your game.
Yeah.
Well, and I would expect low Twitch viewership numbers for a game would result in fewer people playing that game on Twitch,
Right.
resulting in less publicity for your game for free. So
it is self-reinforcing more than a little bit, also.
Yeah.
That said, like, do you have a good community?
You have a good community manager.
I don't even know that you need that much. I stream a game that regularly has less than 200 viewers.
Right.
But, like, we all know each other. We all hang out in each other's chats. It's actually a pretty cool community.
I mean, at that point, it's like us making this podcast.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's a very much an in-group podcast. Like, you either care about this or you care nothing about this.
But, like, so what's your goal with, like, when you're evaluating Twitch viewerships is what I'd say. Like, if you're looking for financial success, then yeah, probably you would want to move on at that point.
I think also the question is, what does that mean for the game itself and the developer of that game? That their game is getting not as many views as one might expect. I don't know.
How important is that? Is a great question.
That is a good question.
I wonder if there are any. I say this. I mean, I'm professionally very close to this, but coming at it from a different angle, I wonder if there are certainly examples of games that were not very successful baseline that saw immense success when they blew up on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Dave the
right.
Diver.
Among Us.
Yeah, Among Us, Dave the Diver, etc.
Fall Guys. That's
Did
but it's typically small games that suddenly went Nova. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there games? I wonder if there's anything where the opposite is true, where there were games that were negatively affected by a huge Twitch viewership.
Yeah.
Because I think that would be like, that would at least be the start of being able to answer the question is like, I mean, the baseline is, do they, if the question is, do they matter? And like, they may increase your bottom line by $1 or $1 million.
I bet they matter in the early days when people are forming like a general opinion. And I think the general opinion of D4 was kind of formed. And now it's on D4 to figure out if they're going to try and shift that general opinion that exists of it.
Yeah. I mean, like, D4 is a game that needs players to stick around and play seasons. and that's the only thing that I can see that maybe it would be adversely impacted, because for a long time there were a bunch of people streaming D4, at least at launch, and there were a lot of relatively big name streamers streaming D4 because it was the new thing, and they've all moved on. And like even a lot of the ARPG type streamers have moved on because there's just nothing to do in season 1. Like Darth Microtransaction is like probably the biggest. I love the name. Darth Microtransaction is probably the biggest streamer right now that was playing D4, and like he's just said to his community that like there's nothing to do right now. I'm going to play other games. I will be back at season 2. So yeah, like I think at least from that standpoint, it gives the impression that there's nothing going on. We'll check back later.
So this is interesting because
which can be fine. Like that's definitely a Path of Exile definitely goes through this whole up and down cycle.
Oh, absolutely. Like, and it's been doing it long enough that it's just expected. Like that's
People
just part of life.
Because I think there's that too. People aren't used to that for like a Blizzard game.
Right.
I also kind of forgot that it's explicitly doing the whole live service thing where it wants you to purchase a battle pass or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, it is doing that thing.
So
and the accelerated battle pass.
That's probably not great if your community's already kind of shrinking like that.
Like I have been curious, and like I contemplated playing the new D3 season, but I didn't because it started on Friday.
I saw they added one of those.
Yeah.
I thought they were done with that.
Yeah, that's what I thought so too. But like, yeah, apparently there's a new season. So I contemplated doing that. So I patched up D3, and I had BattleNet running in the background on just during prime time, and I popped over to see, okay, is anybody playing D4? And like I have a very specific group of people that I've known for ages. I have over 200 people on BattleNet, and when D4 launched, like almost everyone that was on my BattleNet list was playing D4. Then when season 1 launched, there were 6 people on my friends list still playing D4. And then the other night, when I popped over to see, there was no one on my friends list still playing D4. So, I mean, it does feel like there's been a significant drop-off. I just don't know how significant that is in relation to the Twitch numbers. And I think when it comes to game streaming, I am more plugged into very niche communities than something that's trying to be a bigger for everyone game.
You're not into the Fortnite community?
No, but like, okay, so Guild Wars 2 or Path of Exile or God, I'm trying to think of other games. They have a cast of streamers that regularly stream those games, and they're always streaming those games. So like, I know they're a reliable source of entertainment if I want to watch one of them. I don't know that. I think it takes a while for that to evolve from the game of the week. We're going to stream it because it just came out.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of variety streamers that do the stream and like jump from game to game and try and like ride trends.
Yeah. Chase the eyeballs.
I feel like a lot of variety streamers, or maybe people who are like trying to do variety streaming, are having trouble with that because it's like, how do I break into that where there's everyone else is playing this? No one is coming to my stream if like I could just be doing this. I know that definitely happened with Tears of the Kingdom. A lot of big streamers or medium-sized streamers kind of got sick of Tears of the Kingdom because they weren't drawing any audience.
I kind of feel like there's a couple things going on there. Like there's the true variety streamers like Co-Carnage, for example, who plays just everything that comes out and will play some of it and then move on to the next thing. But then I kind of feel like there's another group of streamers that bounces around a lot because they're trying to find a game where they can become an authoritative voice on it.
Mm-hmm.
And when it doesn't work, they bounce to the next game, trying to become the authoritative voice on that game. And like I've seen that with YouTubers and streamers where the same person keeps trying to position themselves as the authority in a game, but it never quite sticks. I don't know.
Anyways, yeah, I'll be happy to just play a bunch of Celeste.
It's also worth noting that Celeste came out some years ago and
It's
not
true.
this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Celeste also just came out this year.
By some definition of
Fair
that.
point.
By the definition of I've just been playing Strawberry Jam this entire year.
Right, yeah.
By our definition of games of the year, sure.
Oh, if you think that's not going on my Game of the Year list.
I know it is. Thalen, why are you invoking the name Wizardry?
Because
There's new Wizardry!
Because a few weeks ago, I spoke a thing into the ether on this podcast, and I didn't get exactly what I was asking for, but this is so very
They
close.
got pretty close.
Because we were talking about Etrian Odyssey, and I said that, as well as Etrian Odyssey seems to be doing, somebody ought to just take the old Might and Magic games, just put a fresh coat of paint on it, don't change the actual underlying gameplay, just give it modern graphics and interface, and release that. And they didn't do it with Might and Magic, they did it with Wizardry. The original Wizardry has just been released for early access on Steam. It is literally the original game. You can hit a key to pop up the original game as an overlay to see what it would look like if you were playing on an Apple II in 1985. And I'm just so happy. And of course I immediately bought it because I asked for this. Might and Magic would be even better, but if this does really well, maybe the folks that control the Might and Magic IP will realize that they should do the same thing. And Wizardry is technically more important to gaming as a whole than Might and Magic. I will admit it. It is one of the roots from which JRPGs as a whole sprang.
Yeah.
But yeah, Wizardry, Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlord. It's on Steam. You can buy it now. You should buy it. It's really, really difficult. This is a game from the 80s.
That's what I remember about Wizardry, was just how ridiculously hard it was.
Oh, it's so hard.
It's from a magical land known as the 80s.
Yes.
You think you're hardcore, but are you Wizardry hardcore?
This game will kill you. And it will not feel bad about it.
This is legitimately the kind of game where when Battletoads came out, or Contra, the people who were into this were like, seems a little too easy.
Yeah.
Speaking of Contra, it's getting a spiritual successor. It's
I
kind
saw
of a
that.
reboot of the first game.
I might have to give it a try.
I will give it a try, but I don't know if it'll be good because it's, modern Konami, not classic Konami.
Yeah. I mean, the important question is, does the Konami code still work? Can I have 30 lives? I will probably need them.
Yeah, you absolutely will need them.
In fact, I'm looking through screenshots on Steam, just looking through things on the community page, and it's notable that there are a large number of the screenshots, the captions on them are in Japanese. It cannot be overstated how important Wizardry is, as the root of JRPGs.
I've always wanted somebody to do a documentary on that one to understand the full root of how that process happened.
Is Wizardry the one where I'm going to fall down a pit a whole bunch?
Wizardry is wandering around a 3D dungeon.
Yes.
Running into enemies and getting killed by them.
And sometimes there are pit traps.
And you will probably fall. There are probably pit traps.
And
I do not recall.
Is this second edition Dungeons & Dragons? So
no. Oh no, this isn't. I mean, it's.
Do I have THAC0 and want low AC?
Probably. It's been a long time since I played the original Wizardry. I mean, it is its own game, but it does have attributes and things like that. Yes.
I distinctly remember being confused why I kept putting on armor and my armor went down.
I mean, you might be thinking about gold box games, but also I honestly
it was definitely
don't recall.
navigating a 3D dungeon.
Yes.
And
yes, Wizardry does have AC, and yes, I'm pretty sure lower is better. Yeah.
So let this be our PSA. If you're playing this new Wizardry, you're going to want your armor class to be lower because it was made with a edition of Dungeons and Dragons that hated the players. I like I like how there's a general assessment of even numbered Dungeons and Dragons just being complete whiffs.
I mean, Second Ed was the D&D for decades.
I'm gonna say that's not really accurate.
Yeah.
I know there was somebody who was like, yeah, but second edition also bankrupted TSR.
That's not what bankrupted them.
Yeah, no, like gross mismanagement of projects and funds was what bankrupted them.
Yeah, D&D was not D&D was where they were making money. It was people.
Gee, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, it was people who wanted to put money into other things that were bad ideas, and then people who had like nothing to do with tabletop gaming ending up in control of stuff. And no, second ed is not what destroyed TSR, but also yes, second edition is a flawed game in many respects, and later editions greatly improved on it.
Is this where I'm also going to have to like learn my spells word by word, and I'm going to have to manually type in the spells?
I think that's Bard's Tale. And also, they have slapped on like an improved interface.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you can just like pull up the spells you have available and select the one you want. I'm pretty sure I saw that in the little gameplay video that they showed.
I thought the spell casting was like an early form of prior suit protection. Like, please look in the rule book for all of the spells.
Some games absolutely did that. I'm pretty sure Bard's Tale was one of them.
There's one I remember where like you had to like cast with runes and put the runes in the right order to make a spell.
I mean, Ultima did that. All the Ultima spells were words of power, and you had to But yeah, I mean they've improved the interface, so you can actually like use a mouse to do things instead of it all being key presses. Because again, remember this is a game from the 1980s.
It didn't have a mouse and keyboard.
We couldn't assume that you had a mouse.
Underlined letters.
I will say, Etrian Odyssey feels like a game that plays very well with just a keyboard, though.
Mm-hmm. I mean, certainly this should.
I mean, it was designed for a D-pad and a touchscreen.
Oh, they also added a mini map.
Wow, and you don't have to
nice.
fill the mini map in?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it fills in on its own.
How am I going to get lost in a dungeon?
I mean, you'll still get lost in a dungeon. Don't worry.
Yeah, the absolute worst traps were pit traps. They didn't do any damage to you, but they did put you down a level. And everything on the level below you was a lot harder.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I remember. I might be thinking of a different game.
I mean, there are a lot of games in this genre, and so it could have been any number of them. Because there's Wizardry, there's the Might and Magic games, there's the D&D Gold Box games. Although those did throw you into a like top-down view for actual fights. These games, you just run up on the guys, and it's I mean, Dragon Warrior got the original Dragon Warrior got its combat like kind of from Wizardry. It works similar to that. I mean, honestly, it's the same style. It's the same style that Etrian Odyssey uses, where you've got a front rank and a back rank, and the enemies are over there. But yeah, everybody should play it. See what the height of computer role-playing games was back in the olden days.
I am old enough to have played games on an Apple II, but like only barely.
This is the point at which JRPGs and CRPGs separated?
Yeah, right around here. I mean, I kind of think really Baldur's Gate. I'm trying to think if there's something earlier than Baldur's Gate that was really not in this general style. Because really, CRPGs came out of this for a good long while. Like you got stuff like Wasteland and that kind of game. I think mostly they just weren't as big here as they became in Japan, and then BioWare came along.
And it all came full circle.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
We have gone a bit over. Any final thoughts?
Sunder is a good skill, more people should use it.
Spectral Throw is not.
Spectral Throw is not.
Anyway.
Those are more terrifying in like full, lovingly rendered 3D than they are in your mind.
We need more Pathfinder 2 nulls, which are just adorable.
Yeah. So I've been told. I guess the upcoming like Fandelver thing coming out from D&D has like a body horror content warning, and you're like, I wonder why. And it stopped and thought about like, honestly, D&D's always had a lot of body horror. It was just
the rendering of it just wasn't in this high detail.
Yeah.
Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See you.